Today is July 5th, and I'd like to call the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Coder. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Present.
Alderwoman Rice.
Present.
Alderwoman Peel.
Here.
Alderman Stevens.
Here.
Chairwoman Spencer.
Present.
5 present, you have quorum.
Thank you. And with that, our next order of business is approval of the minutes for Wednesday, June 15th, our last committee hearing. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from June 15th.
So moved.
Second.
Excellent. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Coder. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Present. Aye, I'm sorry.
Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderwoman Peel.
Aye.
Alderman Stevens.
Aye.
Chairwoman Spencer.
Aye.
5 aye votes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The only item before us today is, item number 1 would be Board Bill number 44. This bill, as we all know, is to establish, put before voters the establishment of a charter commission. The subject here obviously is a big one, and one that really could change the trajectory of our community, of our city, and it would certainly lay the groundwork for that. A charter, as we all hopefully know, is really the most fundamental legal document of a city government. It really is what establishes the form and function, the structure of a city government. It defines the powers of city officials. It establishes the procedures which govern the elected officials, the administration, and all the departments that really deliver the city services that we all, our citizens, expect us to do. Now, as we are really coming out of a very set of tragic events here at the Board of Aldermen within our government structure, I would say, a moment where we're recognizing the failures of many of our city officials. This is a moment for healing and reflection and moving forward as a community, and one where we can hopefully re-envision a new path forward, a new governing structure, documents that can lay forward a better functioning government, and one that can protect our citizens from the abuse of elected officials like we've recently seen. This is the bill before us. Doesn't lay out exactly how we would do that, but just establishes a procedure for doing that. So tonight, I'm glad that we have some members of the public here to weigh in on this process. I want to recognize that we just came out of a holiday weekend. I know there's going to be a lot, and there is a lot of interest in the subject, but nonetheless, I'm really grateful to see on such a hot night, members of the public weighing in and wanting to participate in what their government can and should be. And with that, I will turn it over to the sponsor, the Alderwoman from the 8th, Alderwoman Rice, to introduce before us Board Bill 44.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you, members of the committee, for joining us for an evening hearing with the goal of trying to get participation here to testify on the bill. Excuse me, I am still within the throes of COVID here, so I apologize if you hear coughing from myself or my husband sitting in the room as well. So Board Bill 44 is, like the chairwoman said, establishing a structure, a way forward for us to create a transparent, reoccurring, reliable method of examining the charter every 10 years. We have not had substantial charter reform in the city of St. Louis in a very long time. One could argue, if ever, because we have not undergone this type of an of a holistic overview of our charter since its inception in 1918. The goal here is to try to pass this bill. We walked through the timeline the last time. If we were able to put this bill forward before we break for the summer, then this would go to the voters in November, and voters in November would need a 60% threshold or a charter threshold to pass this bill, to establish this charter commission. So there's a first passed by the voters in November. And then when the commission would be established, that would be starting in May. They would start to meet of next year. And then if they would finalize their work by the following May of 2024. And then the one small amendment that I have to the bill that hopefully maybe we could potentially adopt today would clarify that any election that this would go on would have to be either an already scheduled primary or general election. So we're not creating any special elections, with the goal being it would be a primary or a general election of a fall state election year. So those are our big turnout elections. Those are ones that are already scheduled. So we're not creating any more burden for the Board of Elections, and we're getting the best turnout that we can for the city of St. Louis. So that's kind of the major overview. There is nothing topical in this bill. Just to be very clear, had a number of conversations of folks said, well, hey, what do you want to change? That's not where I see my role in this. I see our role as the Board of Aldermen in creating this process to go forward to say, what is possible, what needs to be changed to bring forward the heads of our departments, to bring forward our city workers, to bring forward our citizens and say, are there places where you have bumped into the charter where we need to make revisions? So I do not have a wish list. Colleagues of mine may have wish lists of ways that we want to get charter change. And those of you who are testifying tonight may have wish lists of what you want to bring forward, and I welcome those. But the board bill itself is a blank slate designed for transparent, trustworthy structural change. That's what we're going for here. So that's pretty much all the overview I have at the moment. Madam Chair, there are a couple of co-sponsors who have joined me on the bill, and I'm grateful for you for doing that. If anyone else would like to join as a co-sponsor, I'm open to that as well. I would love to have the entire board as co-sponsors before we move forward as well. Just this is the type of big structural change that we can hopefully lay out for the city going forward. So Madam Chair, if you want to go through questions first, or if you want to go ahead and grab or work through public testimony. I know we have at least one of our testifiers, Liz, is in transit, potentially in between flights. So we might want to grab her while we have her. But otherwise, I think everyone else is here.
I think, thank you, Alderwoman Rice. I think what we'll proceeding under normal circumstances here would be that we'll take questions from the committee and other board members, and that way the members of the public that want to weigh in have an opportunity to hear the questions and answers that may be out there first, and then we'll go to public testimony. We'll take Ms. Kramer first, and that despite the list that they came in. So with that, I will entertain questions from the committee of the chairwoman. I know we had these, so I don't anticipate this taking a long time. And with that, let's see here. Alderman Vollmer's not here. Alderman Coder. Alderwoman Middlebrook. Questions of the sponsor?
I have no questions at this time.
Thank you. Alderwoman Rice, Alderwoman Peel.
I have no questions.
Alderman Stevens.
No questions, but I will say that I support the amendment once we bring it forward. So thank you for that amendment, Alderwoman Rice.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, we're going to turn it over to the public to hear some. We are limited just out of consistency. Mr. Connolly, I apologize, I wasn't able to answer your Twitter question on that, but it's pretty standard just for consistency to have 2-minute testimony. So Madam Clerk, if you don't mind keeping track of that. If you do want to weigh in beyond that, you're welcome to email me. With that, Madam Clerk, would you mind calling the members of the general public with in the order in which they came in today, with the exception of bringing Ms. Kramer first?
Will, according to the sheet, right, that we have.
Hmm?
Okay,
Yes, with the exception of bringing Ms. Kramer first, and that way, if she's traveling, we won't have to miss her.
got it. And is that 3 minutes or 2 minutes? That was a question that Alderwoman Rice put in the chat.
Oh, I believe we generally speaking have two, is it 3 minutes that we generally have? 3, okay, my apologies on that front, yes. We'll go ahead and keep it with 3.
I will. The first person is Mr. Jerry Conley.
And we do have a protocol to ask members of the public to swear that they are testifying before us in truthfulness. Is that right, Madam Chair? Would you mind?
Yes. If everyone would raise their right hand. And you can unmute your mics, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth? So help you God.
I do.
I do.
Thank you. The first speaker is Mr. Jerry Conley, and you have 3 minutes, and I will give you a warning at when you have 1 minute left.
Very good. Do I need to, was there somebody who has to leave who needed to speak first?
Please go ahead, Mr. Conley.
Okay, very good, will do, thank you. Chairwoman Spencer, members of the committee, my own Alderwoman Annie Rice, thank you very much for the opportunity to testify today on Board Bill 44. I'm very much in support of this measure to put before the voters a provision to establish a charter commission. I think, as we've all seen over the last 3 or 4 months with the series of indictments, that we've got deep systemic flaws that are all too readily exploited for private gain, and unfortunately what appears to be the corruption of a number of elected officials. So I wanted to basically address in my comments areas, structures of the existing structures in city government that I believe Charter Commission would do well to review in depth and come up with different systems. And I'd like to start with the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, made up by the mayor, the comptroller, president of the Board of Aldermen. This entity operates with a fundamental lack of transparency. Every meeting I believe they hold is in violation of the state sunshine law, because the public does not know the measures that the board is voting upon. There is a list of agenda items. There are no supporting resolutions or exhibits. There are substantial contracts, other appropriations that get approved. They're all voted on en masse after the mayor reads the agenda. That's been a practice for as long as I followed the board. Aside from one hearing a year on the budget, there's no opportunity for the public to participate at the Board of E&A. So I believe that's an entity that needs dramatic reform, if not totally dismantling it. So that would be priority number one. My second priority would be basically looking to take the operations that currently exist for the St. Louis Development Corporation, or SLDC, and put those as a regular city department. It was established 10 mayoral administrations ago. It's a nonprofit entity, and it operates outside the city's budget process, except for the Port Authority. Most of the boards that play a role in authorizing tax incentives, also known as tax breaks, have no mechanism for the public to provide input, with the exception of the TIF Commission. SLDC also does not make available the records that are provided in response to sunshine requests. They are made available to the requester, but not to the general public through the records archive on the city's website. And the police department also do not post theirs for the general public to view. That's a major flaw that needs to be addressed. Through following SLDC, I've started to take a longer look at the chapter 3. Am I up on time?
Yes, sir. That was 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'll submit the rest of mine in writing.
Thank you, Mr. Conley. Well,
The next speaker is Mr. Michael Browning.
Hello. Thank you, Alderwoman Spencer and the rest of the committee for letting me speak tonight. I just want to say our charter is our governing document, and it's kind of become like a metaphor for our government as a whole. It's outdated, it's confusing at times, and sometimes it's even self-defeating. It would be easy to have a knee-jerk reaction to try and change the charter in a specific way, but that's not what this bill is. This board bill is a thoughtful, careful measure designed to bring about much needed changes to our charter in a way that's really wholly consistent with self-governance by the people of this city. It dedicates a commission to study the charter and recommend changes that will then be proposed to voters. Each step in the process needs more than a majority to proceed, meaning that proposed changes will have widespread support by the time that they're implemented. I wholeheartedly support Board Bill 44, and I'm thankful to Alderwoman Rice for proposing it. I'm sure that work was being done on this far before the recent events that rocked our Board of Aldermen, but those events emphasized the need to clean up the charter. I hope the members of this committee recommend it for passage and that the full board considers this as an opportunity to move our city forward by making sure its government can better serve its people. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Browning.
And the last speaker is Miss Liz Kramer.
Thank you, Clerk Rogers. And thank you, Alderwoman Spencer, and to the committee for holding this public hearing and also for accommodating my background noise in the airport. My name is Liz Kramer. I'm a resident of the current 8th Ward, and I'm speaking today also in support of Board Bill 44. So for me, addressing the complexity and the minutia of our charter is particularly wonky and a little beyond my policy abilities. But as a resident, I'm really excited about the opportunity to have our charter regularly revisited. I think there's two main advantages to this, which Alderwoman Rice has pointed out. First, the charter and structure of our city should really be responsive to the changes in context, environment, and contemporary practices in governance. A lot has changed since 1949, and the makeup and context of our city is much different. The charter should really be reviewed on a regular basis to respond to those changes. And then secondly, I think the Charter Commission is also an opportunity for civic learning and engagement for residents across St. Louis to really understand how in an intentional way they can participate in change and in our municipal government. When it feels like we have so little control over the government structures that influence us, being able to participate in our own municipality is so critical. So I'm excited about how this could really energize some of the things that happened in the 10 years between charter reform. I have two comments about the bill itself. I realize that the timelines to meet both the election cycle in 2024 and then in future years is very tight, but I have some concern about the 30-day application window. I'm hoping that there would be some ongoing investment in awareness building in order to make sure that there's sufficient applicants. That's a really short timeline, particularly if it falls over the winter holidays every single year, to bring a diverse number of members to that applicant pool. The second thing that I wonder about is the call for adequate staffing and funding, which is tasked to the counselor's office. I facilitate a citizen advisory group, and facilitation is very difficult. And I wonder about maybe defining slightly more in depth what those staffing roles might need, including a process facilitator and things that would really help in successful execution of the commission's work within the tight timeframes.
1
So
minute.
again, thank you. Thank you to Alderwoman Rice for bringing this legislation forward, and I really look forward to seeing it on the ballot.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. And I do believe we have one more speaker. Madam Clerk, maybe Taylor March. Two more?
Maybe
Do we
I-
have two more? And
Let me- I'm gonna go to the updated speakers list, just a second.
I don't see it. Oh, I do see Caddy. Okay, there's a Caddy Evans.
I'm sorry, it is. We have actually two more.
Yes, great.
Candy Evans.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for giving people the opportunity to come and voice their support and their concerns. I do have a special interest, and that is dealing with the St. Louis city's light pollution. Part of the issue is that the way that the ordinances are written, that I just had an assessment of a neighbor, and the response was, their light is excessive, but there's nothing we can do because the ordinance is written to say there's a minimum, but not a maximum. And anything beyond the minimum is wasteful, creates light pollution. And the fact, in conjunction with that, the lights that are all being used are this bright white light that affects circadian rhythms. And those circadian rhythm effects mess with health and mental health. It's also agitating. Bars have learned a long time ago that you don't agitate the drunks, but we're not taking the rules for inside lighting outside. Now, one of the reasons why I believe we need this is parking stations ordinances. 8.70 was developed in 1963. Light has changed since 1963, and our laws need to reflect that. Our zoning codes make no provisions for really outdoor lighting except for parking. Again, we have a minimum set and no maximums. Ordinance 2360, we have, that is regarding to street lightings. We can make a request to increase the lighting standards on a street, but not decrease the lighting standards on a street. This also, the lighting is a waste of energy. We are overlit, and we're not sending the message to people, don't be here when it's dark, or we're not sending the message to the people that it's dark, things need to be quiet. We're lit to daylight. You drive down Manchester and the car lots are lit to be on daylight and create safety hazards on glare. You continue down. Thank you. You continue down, and there are places where it's not necessary to even use headlights. It's so bright. Pittsburgh just became a dark city recently in the past couple of years. Philadelphia had a problem with lights out. There was no change in crime. Again, past the minimum amount of light necessary, which is what we should be aiming at. We're going for the maximum, keeping people up, and it's just bad. So I am all for updating the charter and making our lighting more environmentally and public safety better. Yeah, okay, 2 seconds left.
Thank you, Caddy. And our last speaker, is Taylor March, I believe. Is that right, Madam Clerk?
Is correct.
Thank you, Alderwoman Cara Spencer, and to the members of the committee for the opportunity to chime in and give some public comment on this. I'm very supportive of this measure and think that it lays out a clear and concise process for how we might kind of amend the city charter or make recommendations to the public moving forward. I thought that the legislation was thoughtful and kind of the process and the timelines. My only kind of comment outside of being supportive would be kind of echoing something that Liz has already highlighted in terms of that 30-day applicant window. Just either either lengthening that window or providing for a mechanism to do more public kind of advertising and outreach so that residents know that that opportunity is coming up. Just thinking about the structure of neighborhood community meetings, many of those kind of being on a monthly basis, wanting to make sure that there's plenty of opportunity for residents to hear that this is going to be an opportunity and that they should throw their hat in to help kind of review. And I think this is a great thing and something that is desperately needed in the city. And there's a lot of areas of the city charter that I personally would like to see updated, but I think that this lays out a good process for how that process might take place. That's it.
Thank you, Mr.
Not sure if I'm supposed to mention, but I'm a resident in the 11th ward. Yeah.
Yeah, I failed to kind of ask members of the public to say that at the front end. I will say before we go back to the members of the committee, just a couple things to kind of clear up. Ms. Evitz, the lighting issue, with regards to that, a lot of those things you mentioned are ordinances. Our ordinance, our city code is separate from our charter. Those things can be addressed legislatively. I'm sure this legislative body would welcome your comments and your thoughts on how we can address some of those things with regards to light pollution through that manner. But of course, our code and our charter work together, and those are two pieces that are very, very important to be woven in together. With that, members of the public, on a Tuesday following a holiday weekend with a lot of noise, at least in my neighborhood here in the city, an enormous amount of noise pollution. I want to thank you all for spending some of your Tuesday evening with us, sharing your thoughts. Again, I'll reiterate, if anybody wants to have wants to share additional thoughts, forgot to mention something or didn't have enough time before us today, to please submit thoughts in written form to the committee and to the board as a whole for consideration. Madam Clerk, I'd like to ask members of the committee if they have any follow-up questions or thoughts. I do notice at least one additional board member who's not a member of the committee but is tuning in tonight. And so with that, I will ask for additional thoughts. Going down the order, it looks like Alderwoman Middlebrook, did you have any additional thoughts or follow-up or questions following?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Alderman Stevens, I believe or no, I guess it switches to Alderwoman Peel.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I support this board bill. Thank you, Alderwoman Rice, for submitting it. I don't know where the comments in terms of making this applicant period window longer. I do agree with that. And I don't know where that discussion is going to be put in play for possibly amending this board bill to have a longer period. And so we're going to have a discussion tonight regarding that, about what that period would be, 45 days, 2 months.
I'm open to your thoughts. I think that those were really helpful. That was really helpful feedback from the two folks that stated that. And I think definitely working on outreach. I think outreach and citizen engagement is something that the city as a whole needs to do a better job of. I think we can all agree to that. So I mean, do we think that 45 days? Do we think that 60 days? What is a timeline that you would think would be more acceptable, if you have any opinion on that?
Yeah, in terms of communication takes just a lot of work and time and prep beforehand. Yeah. And so I think at least 60 days in terms of that, having as an open period, and it's probably going to take actually 90 days prep before that to get to even opening it 60 days. So, and as somebody mentioned, neighborhood meetings are, once a month. So giving it 1 or 2 cycles is very important. I think to have it be presented at a neighborhood association meeting or a community may be meeting more than once. So,
yeah, that makes sense. And I think this first time around, if the timeline holds, this first time around, we will have just had it on the ballot in November and then would immediately open an application period. So hopefully that, in order in order to pass it, well, and I guess even if the timeline shifts, it would probably be on a ballot and then immediately opened up for an application. So that would hopefully work towards some of that citizen engagement. But you're right that it is a deeply involved process. And so building something in, particularly for the next 10 years, the next time that this would come up, would be really important to do. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, just another comment is, with all of this in terms of community engagement, and just going back to how important the prep work is before even launching the opening of the application, and making sure that the marketing, advertisement, whatever it is, the communication is out there so that we can get a robust engagement. And so at least 60 days in my opinion. So thank you.
Alderman Peel, did you have any additional questions, or are you?
Thank you.
We'll move on. Thank you. Alderman Stevens.
I'll take either. Alderwoman, Alderman, it's all the same. Never mind. Can you hear me all right, Alderwoman?
Sorry, yes.
Okay. Sorry, I switched over to my, yes. Coming through okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Alderman.
Okay, perfect. So sorry about that. Hotel issues, right? So again, I'm in full support of the amendment that is being presented tonight, as well as this commission. I also do really agree with the 30-day being a bit too short. However, I also think that, at least for myself, I think 60 days would be my maximum, because my concern is that just as an example, one of the common most critiques about our personnel division, for example, is you don't hear back for 6 months, until down the road. So I worry about putting 3 months, or having a 3-month does not have to be the same time as when they start doing those outreach meetings and start engaging the public and so on and so forth. And there are pretty strict or thoughtfully strict parameters on membership of the commission. So I would say I would propose 45 days to 60. I think 60 is a good, 2 months time period. I think that's fair. I think that's quick enough that we're not disenfranchising the public or allowing people time to lose interest, but long enough that we can be thoughtful in the process. And then I also really enjoyed Ms. Kramer's civic learning and engagement suggestion. And I almost wonder if this commission wouldn't benefit from having a sort of tenet to include a civic engagement and learning aspect to it, because I believe that Ms. Kramer is absolutely correct in that the city charter is, our foundational document. It's, for all intents and purposes, our constitution. And I think that it's something that we do need to proactively educate the public on and proactively engage the public on. So I don't know if that is feasible in the timeline that you have in mind for this board bill, Alderwoman Rice. And I will say I would prioritize the timeline of getting this bill out to the full board and then passed to the full board over taking the time to make an amendment to charge this commission with the civic learning and engagement side. But I do also want to throw my support behind that aspect, because again, as Ms. Kramer said, that is a very welcome opportunity that this commission will have. And we want to talk about changing the foundation of the city of St. Louis, educate an entire new generation on our Constitution. So if I haven't already, apologies, I don't have the board bill directly in front of me, being about 600 miles away from my office. But I would like to be added as a co-sponsor if I haven't already. And I look forward to getting this in front of the board and getting it in front of the voters. So with that, I yield back with my thanks and gratitude, Alderwoman.
Thank you, Alderman Stevens. With that, I noticed we have Alderman Gunther from the 9th Ward here with us. Wondered if we had a question there. Oh, and then Alderwoman Peel, I'll come back to you. Alderman Gunther, did you have a question of the sponsor or any comments following we'll take that as a no from the Alderman from the 9th. Alderwoman Peel.
Great, thank you. I would just like to tag on to Alderman Stevens' point and our constituent Liz Kramer in terms of the civic engagement. And I do believe that would be a very important piece to put into this if we can now, because if we don't educate individuals regarding, how to become more civically responsible or just to learn about what is government and how we work, it will weaken this commission also. So if there's a possibility, can we do it today to put a kind of a friendly amendment in there in terms of charging the commission to have an educational component?
I'm going to interject here and just say, since we did not alert committee members of a possible vote, if we could consider any substantive issues, I agree with you completely, but out of respect and the fact that we are already planning on having another hearing and we weren't planning on voting on the bill itself today, I think these are both friendly amendments, very well supported. I don't see any reason. I think we could go ahead and arrange them, bottle them up, and present them in a comprehensive form. Alderwoman Rice, would you be okay with that if we move forward, and that way there's an opportunity to discuss the language? I think those are well taken points.
Yeah,
and
I
an
think that's
opportunity
fine.
to improve on a bill that's.
Sorry, it keeps freezing, so I'm not sure if you're ending or not. That is fine with me. My ultimate dream would we would have an office of civic engagement in this city. That something would, we would have an office that is purely dedicated to engaging our citizens and facilitating feedback for all of these important boards and commissions that we have, and all of the things that the city does that need that kind of engagement. So I'm happy to work on this over the next day or two, see if we can find a good place to put it in there. We may need to look at some budget line items at some point for that as well. But I do think that that everyone is correct, that engagement piece is vital. And the more folks learn, I think it was Michael stated, this is the people's document. This is an opportunity for government by the people, and we do them the best honor by making sure that folks are well educated about what we're doing as well. So that is fine with me.
Excellent. And with that, if we don't have any additional thoughts or comments, I think what we'll go ahead and do, we've covered the bill. We are going to go back. It sounds like we have a little bit of work, not much to do on those amendments. So that covers item number 4, resolutions. We have no committee. We've gone through committee discussions, and with that, I think we can go ahead and call this hearing to a close and go enjoy the rest of this very, very hot St. Louis evening. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I will motion to adjourn.
Second.
Previous roll.
Affairs Committee. Thank you. Hearing no objections, the Intergovernmental Affairs meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you, members of the public, for joining us here tonight.